What's happening? Welcome to the 73rd episode of the Slapstream with Djordje live from Slapsville. Um, Still impressed that I made it this far. A few more episodes until the 100th one. Who knows if it's going to happen or not. Today I'm playing like with my band Tiger Army, so I'm getting ready, almost ready. I still don't have grease in my hair, but I shaved my sides, so we're playing with Danzig and Cradle of Filth is opening, so that should be a fun one. So if you're in LA, I believe they still have some tickets available. If you're in LA or around, come down to Toyota Arena. I think we're gonna start playing around 8 o'clock or so, but be there on time and then check out the other bands as well, and definitely Danzig. We're gonna be playing tomorrow in Phoenix with Danzig as well. So I'm really looking forward to this weekend. This week is a little sad, a lot of sadness because we lost one of my favorite rockabilly slap bass players from the 50s, James Kirkland, who played with Ricky Nelson and all kinds of other great guys like Bobby Lee Tremel and everyone. Check him out. I had the honor to interview him a few years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. He answered like, I don't know, like 40 questions, 50 questions, and he was just the nicest guy ever. um, I'm really happy that I had the chance to do that because I noticed there's not that many interviews of James Kirkland. There's not that many interviews of slap bass players, but Slapstream is here to change that. Before I continue and introduce my today's guest, very special one, like always, make sure to hit that subscribe button and slap that like this video. That helps with the YouTube algorithm. Make sure to follow me. Make sure to follow Art of Slap Bass. Make sure to follow my guest. All the links are in the description of this video. And if you would like to support the channel, support my work, check out my Patreon. And you can also buy uh, Art of Slap Bass t-shirt. All these links are in the description of the video. And without further ado, I would like to introduce my today's guest is Dakota Collins.
How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. How are you?
Doing good. Pleasure to be on.
Of course, we've been talking about it for a while, and it's finally happening.
I know, man. I know. Uh, touring, family. Young one on the way. Life's
Congratulations.
good, brother.
Those are great news. Um, I would like to, feature all the aspects of your career today during the 73rd episode of the Slapstream. But I would like to start with your beginnings. How did you get interested in slap bass? Is that your first instrument? How did you discover music? I know you belong to a music family, so I would be surprised if you didn't. But I would like to hear what your perspective.
Yeah, I started off, you know, uh, probably when I was about 9 years old, playing guitar, and and I was decent enough, but I can't compete with my family. So I decided to pick up the next best thing that it just first time I saw it, stand up bass. And I grew up going to rockabilly festivals and seeing my aunt and uncle play. And I checked out Ray Campy when I was 9 years old. And uh, I I just decided that was it for me. And so my uncle brought me backstage and I was able to play his upright bass and instantly just started slapping and it came naturally to me. And so that's kind of how I got my start. I was 10 years old. I saved up allowance, bought a broken stand up bass and repaired the neck myself. And, that's pretty much how I got my start.
Do you still play guitar? Do you play
No,
any other
not
instruments?
anymore. I play a little bit of steel guitar. console and lap steel, mainly like C6 sort of stuff. There's so many different odd tunings to it. It's just a little passion, side passion that I have. Upright bass is my main instrument and always will be.
I'm glad to hear that,
Yeah,
especially slap bass. Do
yeah,
you,
of
do you
course.
do you write any songs? If you write them, do you write them on bass or you still use a guitar for that?
I have old school Epiphone that was my great aunt's, and it's a hollow body, and I use that, and I'll play rhythm guitar and write stuff. But I do use slap bass primarily when I'm a lot of the Western swing stuff. It's a lot more easier to use, for me to think about chord positions, and I use the Nashville number system. So, as long as you know your major and minor scale and you assign your numbers, you're always there. It's easier just to write it down that way. So when I do write music, and I write music for Kyle Eldridge and the Rhythm Rounders, we co-write stuff all the time. Primarily, it's all bass work.
Kyle is these days your main band. We're gonna be talking about that a little bit later during the show, but that's who you played the most, right?
Yeah, that's he lives in Louisville, so we do festival work, and I come out for the bigger tours and stuff like that.
Mhm. But originally you're from California, and then you lived in Nashville for a bit, right? If I
Yeah, so I was originally born in Santa Barbara, California, in Cottage Hospital, and Santa Barbara had a rich history of psychobilly and rockabilly bands. We had the 13 Stars, Blazing Haley, Dead Billies, stuff like that. So uh, I remember when I was 10 years old, just had gotten into stand up bass, and High Noon came and played a local festival in our park. And that was the first time I saw Kevin Smith playing. And it just blew my mind.
what years that was that? Do you remember?
I don't even remember, man. It was so long ago. I asked him and Sean Young about it, and they're like, I don't know, man. We played a million gigs.
It's so cool. I never seen High Noon with Kevin Smith. I seen them with Jimmy Sutton when they played. I think that was 2007. And what was it called? Rockin' Fest in Green Bay,
Oh yeah,
Wisconsin.
at the Oneida Casino.
Yeah. So that
Yeah,
was it. But I never seen them, and I would love to see them. I love Kevin Smith, like all of us slappers. But
yeah, man. You had him on, didn't you?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm in touch with Kevin. Like we
He's such
talk all
a
the time.
nice guy. Real funny story. I was all the way in Germany, and I saw Kevin Smith play once when I was younger, and I've always just listened to his bass and just been a giant fan of his. I didn't really picture what he kind of looked like as the years went by. I kind of forgot, and I was sitting in Germany, and this random guy came up and was speaking with an American accent. So I just said, "Hey, where are you from?" And he said, "Oh, Texas. Where are you from?" And I said, "I live in Nashville right now." And he's all, "Hey, man, you're a bass player. Who are your favorite bass players?" And I said, "Well, I like Bob Moore. I like Joe Fick, of course. Who doesn't?" And this guy named Kevin Smith. And he laughed. He asked me if I had ever met Kevin Smith before. And I said, no. And he said, well, now you have, because I am Kevin Smith. So all the way in Germany.
It's such a great story.
Yeah, it was funny,
Awesome.
man. That's probably the best compliment anybody can ever get, because I didn't know it was
Sure.
him.
That's great. All right, so big shout out to Kevin.
Oh,
Kevin is a legend and a great friend and just awesome.
yeah.
Um, as far as your bass playing, how did you learn? Did you have like any formal education, or you're mostly self-taught?
I am completely self taught. And, I just sat there in my room and hammered out major and minor scales. Uh, I didn't get into Nashville number system as early as I wish I had. And so I pretty much learning all the Collins kids material, learning a lot of the stuff that Larry did with Joe Maphis, like Rockin' Gypsy and Early American and Flying Fingers. And I just pretty much got thrown into the ring, man. And they said, pull your weight and, hold the backbone of the music.
That's great. That's such a great experience. We're gonna talk about Ed. I have like so many questions for you. But before we go any further, I saw that you have a bass right there in the corner. Do you mind playing a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure, sure. Okay, there you go. And all right, this is my 43K. I just bought it in Santa Barbara, California, a couple of weeks ago. I'll give you a little bit of Rockin' Gypsy since we just talked about some Collins kid stuff. So.
All right. I dig the lick that you did when you use your thumb. I'm gonna ask you about that later as well.
Oh, I love using thumbs and pinkies. People don't use their thumbs and pinkies enough.
Well, everybody has its own style, but I love it.
Yeah.
Um, I was recently in Nashville and I was chasing Joe Zinkin's bass,
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking. I'm not sure if you know Ken Blanton. Have you ever met him?
No, no, I have not.
He's. Do you know who he is?
No.
He's an excellent bass player. He's now he's mostly a barber. He owns a barber shop. I believe that's a little bit north of Nashville, and but it's an Uber ride, so I guess
Mm-hmm.
north part of a town. And he bought Joe Zinkin's bass, and I really wanted to try it and to see it, and then it was a great experience. And then um, I was analyzing a little bit of his thumb use.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so it's a cool thing. It has
Was
a
that in
good history.
Mount Juliet?
I'm not sure. I'm not very familiar with Nashville. I was
Okay.
there, had like a gig over there, like a corporate gig, and then I had like one morning free. So I knew that I wanted to um, try that bass, and I knew that I wanted to visit Joe Zinkin's gravesite. So that was my task, and I
Mm-hmm.
did that before my flight back to LA.
Mm-hmm.
And I was almost late, but I was like, you know what? Even if I'm late, I have to do this. So, but then they kept like pushing and pushing my flight back. I was like, all right, this is great. So I made everything, made it happen.
Yeah,
So,
and I saw you also went down to Roberts too.
oh yeah, I went like to see Joe Fick. Wherever I'm down there, I try to go to Roberts, once or twice a week.
Get a fried
And
bologna sandwich.
sorry.
Did you get a fried bologna sandwich?
No, I had that barbecue next door
Oh,
there.
Jack's.
It was right next door to
Yeah,
Roberts.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
Jack.
So,
Good man. But next time you go to Roberts, you got to have the fried bologna sandwich.
all right.
Got to
Uh,
try it.
okay, I'll do that. Do you remember your first band? What kind of music you were playing? I remember you mentioned rockabilly, psychobilly. So, what was the first passion?
The
What was the first band? Tell me more
the
about it.
first band I was ever in the first official band I was ever in was the Collins kids. Outside of that, I joined this band, and it was kind of psychobilly meets Hank 3 sort of outlaw country stuff, mainly outlaw country with psychobilly bass. So, a lot of double time, a lot of Fred Maddox kind of stuff going on behind country music. And it was called Nate Lotta and the Train Hoppers. And we used to just play local city festivals in Santa Barbara and Goleta, Carpinteria, Ventura, Oxnard, all that area. And it was fun for quite a while. And eventually we broke up. The guy became a school teacher. And I wanted to play psychobilly music. I had grown up playing traditional rockabilly for so long, and I kind of wanted to rebel against it. And I had older brothers who were into classic punk rock, like Fear, Blitz, Subhumans, stuff like that. And so I started getting into punk rock, and I discovered psychobilly quite early. I really wanted to get that going. There were no psychobilly bands in the area, and if there was two of them maybe, and they already had established members since the 1990s. And so I ended up just kind of finding different punk bands in the area, and I would go to their gigs and I'd convince them to let me play upright bass with them. And we formed a couple different psychobilly bands that way, and nothing really notable. It was a lot of just playing in dive bars, and it uh, it was a great experience, great party time in my life, I guess. But then I joined Blazing Haley, and that was a dream come true for me because I grew up, seeing them play at fiestas, Santa Barbara, all the time. And it was a big honor that they asked me to fill in for their bass player, who had just had a family and wasn't interested in playing shows anymore. And so, big, big shout out to Blazing Haley, man.
And now we're talking about 2000s. When is this all happening?
Yeah, this is happening in the early 2000s.
Okay. How old were you when you started playing bass?
I was 10 years old.
Oh, okay. So right after you started playing guitar, you kind of discovered bass.
Exactly. I
Okay.
could not compete with Larry, so I picked up the bass and decided to go on stage with him.
Oh, wow. So when was the first time you started playing with him?
It was maybe after 6 months of picking up a stand-up bass.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So tell me about that. I mean, I'm not gonna ask you like how did you start playing with Larry, but since you probably knew him, since you were born. Um, but how did that feel? I mean, he is in this world like a huge star, and he was a kid and a big star, in 1950s. How did that feel? Was it like a big deal, or it was kind of oh, he's my uncle?
There never was any pressure at all. He never put any pressure on me. And it was really probably one of the most specialist things I'll ever have in my life was going on stage with my family and in playing music. And everybody had their goofs. He said, number one thing to do is if you mess up, just keep playing and act like nothing ever happened. So I I really just never had any pressure. I always enjoyed playing with them. Lori was great. Larry was great. They encouraged me in every aspect of my career. And they definitely, I owe a lot to them because they really took me, Larry really took me under his wing. And we just sat there and hammered out the music, and it was great.
And this is your mom on the photo as well, right?
Yeah, that's my mom. That is Larry and Lori's sister, and she calls herself the other Collins kid. And she was brought out on Town Hall Party and as their baby sister. So if you ever see any old episodes of Town Hall Party, that's my mom.
Yeah, that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
And is she a musician too?
She is not. She is a completely just 100% a cowgirl. She, uh, does cutting and roping and competes in rodeos and lives out in Texas. And she's she is a real take no shit kind of gal, you know.
Wow, that's great. And so so you've been playing with so you played gigs with Collins kids as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you play with Larry.
Yeah, yeah. We do. Larry started doing his solo stuff. Uh, and we did more of the Delta Dawn, Tulsa turnaround. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. Uh, you know, and I also played electric bass on a lot of that stuff as well.
Mhm.
And it really threw me out of my comfort zone because I'd never picked up an electric bass in my life, and here I was, almost, you know, in my late 20s, and finally got around to playing one, and the frets really throw me off.
Okay,
Yeah,
so here you're with Deke, right? Where's
yeah,
this?
that
Yes.
was just a few years back, and Christopher Burkhart from Stellar Shows booked Larry, Deke, and Kyle, and we did it as a town hall party setting where Kyle's band was everybody's band, and we called a bunch of our friends, invited them up. We had Jeffrey Miller come out, Josh Sorum, Elvis Cantu, bunch of different what Amber Fox, of course, she's great, and it was a great evening. So since that day, Kyle and I have formed our own tribute to Ranch Party and Town Hall Party, and we call it the Rhythm Rounders Ranch Party. And we take it to different festivals. We had done it at High Rockabilly, and we just take different artists that are our friends, say, come up, plug your all your merch, and play a song or two, and let's have some fun and just have it be the way it used to.
So this is the band, right?
Yep, that is the band. So on, we have Larry, myself, Kyle Eldridge, Chris Story, who is actually the drummer of Blazing Haley, and the
Oh,
drummer of Larry, and also Kyle Eldridge. I took him with me everywhere, man. And then the gal is one of my best friends, and she is a great psychobilly and rockabilly drummer, and her name is Kelly Tennis. She's been one of my friends, closest friends, for just as long as Chris Story has.
so and you mentioned she's a psychobilly drummer.
Yeah, she plays standing up in heels, man.
Ah, cool. Who's
Yeah,
she playing with?
she does all sorts of fill-ins and stuff, but now she went to school, and she's taking a break from music.
Aha.
She
Okay.
became a hospice nurse, so she's out there helping out people who are on the last limb of their life, and she's a saint for doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any story that you would like to share as far as playing with the Collins kids?
Yeah, I think one of the most memorable gigs I had playing with Larry and Lori, we played Lincoln Center in Manhattan, and Joe Clay was on the bill, and we had a pickup band, and so our drummer was actually Crazy Joe. Do you remember Crazy Joe?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah. So our drummer was actually Crazy Joe,
All
And
right.
in the middle of the song, we're sitting there and we're playing and having fun. And I turned around, Larry and I turned around and looked, and Joe had gotten off the drums, and Joe Clay hopped on the drums, didn't even miss a beat, and finished the set. It was unbelievable. I didn't know that Joe Clay was a great drummer, but he played the whole set, no blemishes, no anything.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
And have you played with Joe Clay
yeah,
singing?
yeah. I did. I went down. There was a few years before I went to Nashville that I went out to New Orleans,
Mhm.
and I started playing some gigs with him. At the Rock and Bowl and different Louisiana gigs. He was later on in his year, but most of the time I just spent. We would go fishing and just hang out, just talk about, the way that music used to be and how
Oh,
much
cool.
simpler life was back in the day.
That's great. It's interesting because I played with Joe Clay quite a few times actually, but one of the times I played with him was in New Orleans.
Oh yeah, at the Rock
Yeah,
and Bowl for the Ponderosa Stomp.
was Ponderosa Stomp.
Yep. Did they do it at the House of Blues or at the bowling alley?
Yeah, it was House of Blues.
Hmm.
It was a long time ago, man. I think it was like maybe 2007,
Yeah, I think the
seven,
Collins
eight,
kids
something like
played the
that.
Ponderosa Stomp, and I loved Ira. I thought he was great, and I loved his festival. I'm not too sure what's going on with it nowadays. I guess it's kind of fallen off my radar.
Yeah, I played a few times. I played in Memphis,
Hmm.
and I played it in New Orleans. And I remember in New Orleans, I played with Dale Hawkins, Joe Clay, like with a bunch of people from the 50s.
Yeah,
So
Dale Hawkins. That's a cool gig.
it was a cool gig. It was an interesting gig.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
I had to be alert.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah, I'm sure.
it was unpredictable.
Yep. There's
But it was
a lot of musicians that are, you do quite a few sub gigs, so you know what that's like.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's weird. I mean, I do lots of like jazz sub gigs, but
Hmm.
as far as rock and roll and rockabilly, they're like pretty fairly simple. And then when you have to pay attention to like to some kind of hillbilly timing or something, that things can train wreck. All of a
What
sudden,
happens
it's a
when you get
different.
the singer songwriters who write the song and then they put guitar chords behind it in sporadic places to go with their singing?
Sure.
No,
Oh
no measure is the same.
yeah, exactly. Well, I like that description. Um, so when was the last time you played with Collins Kids?
The last time that I played with the Collins kids, I guess it had to have been Viva Las Vegas. I think it was.
Ah,
It was quite a long time ago.
like
Uh,
this one?
that was just Larry by himself,
Okay.
and we had brought out Ruby Ann, and she sang some Lori songs. But primarily, that gig consisted of uh, songs like Delta Dawn, Whistle Bait. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. We brought quite a variety to Viva Las Vegas, and we played all of their hits like Mercy and Hoy 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 and Hop Skip and Jump uh, but Larry, he's when he plays by himself, he does a lot of rockin' guitar stuff, and it's pretty dang high energy. So, but the last gig that I played with Lori singing had to have been Viva Las Vegas. I think it was quite a while ago. She, uh, for whatever reason, had decided to stop singing. I'm not quite sure why, because she always, could carry a tune, uh, even when she had gotten older, and she always had such grace about her when she was singing on stage. It was very, very difficult when she had passed, uh, and it was difficult on Larry too. But and that's the struggle. It's not just music, it's family. And at the end of the day, I think that's why I ended up getting off the road as much and kind of settling down and just wanting to be at home with my family more often than not. I got tired of living in hotel rooms and seeing having a bunch of people buy me a beer or drinks, and then they would get offended when I would say no because you did it the night before. So it was getting a little bit old, but I still love the road, and I often miss it. I miss touring, especially when I over in Europe and the UK. I miss it. Can't wait to get back.
Are there any tours planned for the near future?
No, not right now. We're just doing one-off festivals at this point. I have a daughter on the way, and so Kyle has a young daughter too, and
Hmm.
so we kind of just want to hang out at home and just do festivals, fly out gigs. So
Do you have any scheduled gigs?
yeah, actually, funny you say that. I we just ended up signing the contracts, and so we will be at the Western Swing Out Memorial Day weekend of this month, actually, and that's out by Bakersfield in a small town called Tehachapi, and their festival is real great. They get great and really talented acts. A lot of I've gone there and not known who the act was and discovered artists that way. And we're playing on Saturday night of the festival, and it's that night. It will be in the evening. Uh, will be Kyle Eldridge, Dave Stuckey, and Sean Young, and I'll also be slapping bass for Sean Young as well.
That's great. And could you say the date again?
Yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend, which is at
Okay,
the last weekend of this month.
nice. And what is the name of the festival? Western Swing Festival? What did you
It's
say?
called the Western Swing Out.
Okay. I think
Yeah.
I played that festival with Deke a few years ago.
Yeah,
It kind of rings the
think
bell.
typically there, it's funny, when we go out to festivals, I see Deke at every festival I'm at.
Yeah,
I don't,
Deke
I don't,
everywhere.
he's at everything, regardless whether he's playing or not.
He usually plays.
Yeah, he definitely does. But
You know,
I'll see him sometimes, man. It's a shock. Kyle and I, we went out and we got asked by Rosalie Mayfis and the Mayfis family to play Joe Mayfis's 100th birthday celebration. And it was in Cumberland, Maryland. And we just played a whole night of traditional Western swing and town hall party songs, a lot of Joe Mayfis songs. And Rose Lee was there. Lori was there. Jody was there. And it was great. Deke was there. So he and Deke played and actually got Rose Lee on stage to sing "Dim Lights" and "Thick Smoke" with her.
wow, that's
Yeah,
great. This is her in the photo, right, with you?
yep, that is Rose Lee Mayfis. Rest in peace.
And where was this photo taken?
That's taken in this little green room. The event for the Joe Mayfis birthday bash was at this winery. It's a real small town, It was actually in Cumberland, Maryland. That's where Joe Maphis is originally from. Back when he used to play in the old Dominion barn dance and stuff like that. And that was taken backstage at the green room. And I want to say she is probably about 90, 96, something like that, right? 90, 95, 90, yeah, mid 90s right there. And she would still sing and she was very coherent, and you would not guess that she was in her 90s.
Huh. Wow. That's that, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You besides Collins kids and Kyle that we're gonna be talking about in a minute, which other artists would you mention that you played with?
Um, wow. There's a lot of different sub gigs and stuff. I, off the top of my head,
Who stands out the most? Who would you write in your
it was
bio?
a big bucket list to finally play with Sean Young. I've always been a fan of him singing and his music, and I loved him. I played with Lucky Tub for a while, and that it was all right. I kind of had a little bit of falling out with him. Hope he's doing well. I did subs with Wayne Hancock. I played on stage with the Reverend Horton Heat. Um, Big Sandy, all these different bands. You know how the scene is, and most of the musicians are all friends. So bass player can't make it. Hey, let's get Dakota to play bass. I'm sure you get it all the time. And so I've, Mark Gamsjager from the Luster Kings. He was great. I did a tour with him over in Holland and Belgium, and played a few times at Vivo with him. Charlie Hightone was really, really great. He's incredible. I'm a big fan of his voice. He is one of the smallest people I've met, but he has the biggest voice in the room always. And as we talked about earlier, Joe Clay, that was a big, huge bucket list for me. And then I used to tour, and I played for a long time with this band called Woody Pines. I think you had Sean Supra on your show, right?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, yeah. Sean used to play with Woody Pines quite a while ago. I think it was after his stint with Wayne Hancock.
Mhm.
And then Skip France had played with him. He's another great bass player. I believe he's in Chattanooga. And I just had moved to Nashville and was looking to get a gig, and I joined him for about 4 or 5 years, and we toured all over. It was great.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Sorry, with who? With Skip?
no, with Woody, the guy, the band's name, the singer
Ah,
songwriter, his name
the
was
band
Woody
that,
Pines.
the band that Sean Supra played with.
Yes, yeah.
Um, that's that's yeah.
He was not so much rockabilly or country. He did more of a gypsy jazz kind of
Oh,
bluegrass.
cool.
Yeah, it was more like a very jazz oriented. Um, a lot. It was more like a Wayne Hancock meets uh, Django Reinhardt sort of
Mm.
stuff. It was
You
it was
mentioned
really cool. It was a trio, no drums.
nice.
Yeah, so
You
just you
mentioned
would have loved it. It's just straight bass slapping all night long.
nice. You mentioned jazz. Do you play jazz?
I try not to, man. It's too much of a headache for me. I
Be-
don't know how you do it, man.
I recently started playing with a big band. It's Bernie Dressel's big band
Yeah.
from Brian Setzer Orchestra, and I love playing that stuff. I like sight reading, and keeps my chops up. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
fun
definitely.
little
I'm
thing.
sure you are you reading a lot of charts or what?
Yeah, it's all reading. It's like,
Yeah.
17 people, playing together that, see each other
And
all
I'm
every
sure
day.
you're brushing up on your sight reading right there, man.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to music school for 14 years, so
Oh wow.
so I played 7 years in a symphony orchestra. I played big
Mhm.
bands, jazz stuff, and but it's been a bit. It's been a minute, and then Bernie's band is fast and high energy, and lots of notes,
Mhm.
so it could be a little tricky. And it's not just like straight ahead mainstream jazz. We play some Frank Zappa tunes, so all the time signatures, and it could be tricky. We recorded an album together. That's great, and then we've been playing around LA, and it's fun.
Nice.
I dig it.
Where have you guys been playing in LA?
Vibrato.
Okay.
We have a upcoming gig at Baked Potato at the end of the month. I believe it's 25th. Um, there was a big band festival that we played together. You know, stuff like that. Just around town. I never toured with him. I played with him a bunch, like with Drake Bell, but it was like jazz stuff. I really like playing that, jazz with Bernie. He's top notch jazz player.
Well, you asked me a lot of questions. Let me flip the role here real quick. I'm interested to know something. Who was the number one artist that was on your bucket list that you got to play with?
Huh.
If you had to choose one,
That I did play with.
yeah,
Uh,
that you did play, that you were able to play with.
I mean, I didn't really have a I didn't really have had like a Lemmy on a bucket list, but
Hmm.
that was kind of, if someone asked me what will be kind of the most impossible thing that I would like to happen, would probably be a Lemmy. So
Yeah,
if I had to choose one dude, that'll be him.
yeah, and all doing all the head cat stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great. He wanted us to do like a bass player song. He mentioned Dave Grohl, like, and they were having fun, but that never happened.
Hmm.
And but we
Did
talked.
you were you playing bass with them with Headcat when they played at the Oneida Casino?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That
I
was
was there in the crowd, man. Young me.
that was a fun gig.
Yeah.
The best part of that festival for me was like going with Lemmy to see Little Richard performing, because Little
Oh
Richard
yeah.
was his favorite dude, and we went like together, just him and me. I was like, all right, this is great.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh,
Hey,
I love.
maybe you know what? If you, maybe Danzig needs an upright bass player, man.
All right.
Yeah.
You're a Misfits fan?
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. Misfits. The Fiend Skull was the first tattoo I ever got, and I was
All
12
right.
years old.
You're 12 years old.
12 years old.
Oh,
That's the
wow.
perks of having older brothers.
Wow. That's young.
Oh
For
yeah,
a
yeah,
tattoo.
I
Did you
know.
need uh like parents' permission, or what? How did
Oh
that go?
no, we're growing up with a bunch of old punk rockers.
And that was in Santa Barbara?
Yeah, in Santa Barbara.
How old were you when you moved out of Santa Barbara to Nashville?
So, like I said, when I moved originally from Santa Barbara, I went to New Orleans,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'd come back from New Orleans and I was playing, doing all the psychobilly stuff and country stuff, and I just had gotten over it. I was probably about 24,
Hmm.
20, 25 when I moved to Nashville, and I lived there for probably about 5 years, and I loved it. It was great. I played music full time. Uh, didn't need a day job. It was, to be honest, the first couple of years of living there, I had an apartment and I paid rent for it, and I never was home. I was always either on a Prevost bus or in a Sprinter van, all the way across the nation.
Hmm.
So it was great. I always tell people I lived in Nashville. but you don't really live in Nashville, you know?
But if I understand correctly, I mean, I obviously never lived in Nashville, but before I moved to the States, it was definitely on my list. Uh,
Hmm.
how I see Nashville is that like most of Nashville guys don't, I mean, at least people that play Broadway, they don't really tour, right?
No, all the Broadway guys, they stay in town and they're
Okay.
available for gigs, and they have to be. Uh,
Yeah,
so
that's how.
if you were maybe a bigger band could pull Joe Fick out of it, but he plays with like 4 bands a day and 6 or 5 days a week. So when I was when I would come home from tour, I would just hit up Joe Fick or all these different other bass players and be like, "Do you guys have a show you can't make, or so I could do a sub gig?" Yeah. So it was cool. But then when I moved to Nashville, like I said, I got in touch with Skip France
Mhm,
uh, and joined Woody Pines, and they were on their management and their booking agency was Atomic.
mhm.
So they actually played really good gigs, theaters, listening rooms, wineries, stuff like that. And we were on the road 200 plus dates a year.
Oh wow.
So it was always go, 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 go. Back in Nashville for the holidays, if you're lucky. And we toured all from Nashville to California, to Florida to New York, Canada. And then we had gotten a deal going with this promote booking agency called Brookfield Nights
Mhm.
over in the UK. And they got us a lot of BBC gigs.
Hmm.
And we were touring every town in Scotland. We did all of Scotland, all over, and even the small towns, and where we would play in a church, and the whole entire town would be there. It was amazing. And we did all of Scotland, we did all of Wales, all of England, all of Ireland, and I loved playing in Ireland. Their uh, Cork County is so beautiful, and it was unbelievable because that was the first time that I ever got to spend time over in the UK, and actually see all the different countries, as opposed to just flying in, playing a festival, seeing where the festival is, and then going back to the airport and flying home.
Um, that's some great experience. When we mentioned Kyle quite a few times. I would be curious to hear your story. How did you guys meet? That's pretty much your main gig these days, right?
Yeah, yeah. As I said before, we're family, we're blood at this point. Um, I met Kyle. I was on tour with Woody Pines, and we played this small bar in Columbus, Ohio. It was just a during the week filler gig. You know what anybody who's in a band knows. You have your anchor dates, then you have your filler gigs during the week. And so we played this place called the Shrunken Head, and it wasn't that great of a venue, but we had an opener, and I came in and checked them out as I do with all the openers. I always watch their sets and typically buy merch from them. I love supporting music, and but this guy was playing Merle Travis, Joe Maphis, and then he played a Larry Collins song. And I was so blown away because I had never seen anybody do that except Deke Dickerson and Crazy Joe. And I was blown away. So I told him, I was like, hey, I went up and I was all he actually thought I was gonna beat him up. Because I went up to him and I was like, man, you're playing my uncle's music. And he thought I was mad about it. And I just said, and you're nailing it. You're amazing. You need to come to Nashville with me and play shows. So a couple weeks passed by, and Kyle thought that I wasn't going to call him. And sure enough, I called him and said, "Hey, man, you better get down to Nashville because I got a slot for you tomorrow at the Nashville Palace." And so he came, and it was a little bit rough because in Nashville, as you know, it's 4-hour gigs. And you're lucky to repeat the material if a lot of bars don't even like doing that, and it's all requests and stuff. So he was just kind of thrown into the ring, and he excelled. He blew everybody away, and him and we formed that bond, and he would come down and stay with me when I was not touring, and we would just play different clubs around town, like Roberts, Nashville Palace, Layla's, the Broken Spoke, or not the Broken Spoke, the Wheel, and which I don't think the Wheel is there anymore. I think it's now Kid Rock Bar or
Oh
something
wow.
like that. Yeah, I think Kid Rock bought it, or no, Alan Jackson did. So now it's AJ's, and and we played nudies, and oh no, that wasn't with Kyle. Uh, but we just kind of played some different clubs along Broadway, and we brought him to Honky Tonk Tuesdays, Western Swing Wednesdays, and everybody loved him. But it was also kind of a weird time for us because a lot of Nashville, they want to hear Johnny Paycheck. They want to hear Merle Haggard. And we love all those guys, but we you know, um, like Spade Cooley, Bob Wills, Tex Ritter, Tommy Duncan. We like guys that are like that. And so we would play a lot of old school traditional country and Western swing. And we would get a great response. And if the crowd started looking bored, we would just play an instrumental, and he would just shred guitar in their face, and he would reel them back in. He's amazing, man. That kid's gonna go very far.
He's great. You mentioned Crazy Joe. Was Crazy Joe an influence on Kyle? They're
So
both from Ohio, right?
yeah, so here's the funny thing. Crazy Joe is from Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Yep.
Kyle
I know.
Eldridge is from Yellow Springs, Ohio. And
Okay.
Kyle Eldridge is actually Crazy Joe's drummer. He plays drums in Crazy Joe and the Mad River Outlaws.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we got it's funny how we are so connected. And we know all the same people. It's a small world.
I played with Crazy Joe. I That gotta be 2006, maybe. I think six.
Oh
I
yeah.
played Crazy Joe.
Crazy he's amazing.
He's great. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while, so
Yeah, I
uh,
think he got a degree and now he's a teacher.
I know that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've been in touch with him. He has a couple kids, I think, too. But
yeah. He's definitely got a couple kids, but he's cool. Him and Kyle, they still talk all the time. Though, he'll go up to Yellow Springs, hang out with him, and
isn't he from Enon, Ohio? I thought
you
he was
know,
from Enon.
yeah. But I think Enon is, dude. You're talking about one cornfield
Oh,
that's
really?
right next to another.
And a funny thing, the reason why I remember about Enon, Ohio, we played a gig with Deke Dickerson
Mhm.
in Green Bay.
Yeah.
It was Joe and me, Deke. I forgot who was the drummer, Sugar Balls or whoever.
Mhm.
Or maybe, yeah, I think it was Sugar Balls on drums. But in the audience, there was I invited Slim Jim from the Stray Cats like to
Mhm.
come to the show. So he was at the show and he brought his friends It was Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses,
Oh wow.
and it was um, John Corabi from Motley Crue.
Hmm.
And I remember, oh man, that was fun. It got to be 2007 then, because that's when I started playing with Jim, and that's when that had happened. But anyway, and then I remember that Crazy Joe and Gilby Clarke hit off immediately because they were both from Ohio.
Hmm.
So yeah, like Crazy Joe, and you know him, and then Gilby Clarke and his whole Guns N' Roses rock
Yeah.
stuff, talking about Ohio, and yeah, it was pretty hilarious. It's funny.
Oh yeah. I know, man. They're just breeding them in test tubes up there.
But that's. Do you think that that's how Kyle discovered their whole music? It was through Crazy Joe.
I think so.
Okay.
And he Kyle has spent the majority of his life woodshedding. And sorry, hold on. Yeah, can you get the dog out? Thanks, Arlene. Sorry, we got two puppies.
All
uh,
right.
but yeah, I think that I know that he's played drums with Joe since an early age, and I think that he just spent so long woodshedding and becoming a perfectionist. Kyle is the kind of guy where he will nerd out about a harmony lick on a Merle Travis album, and then he'll figure out how to play both the main part and the harmony part together at the same speed. He's amazing. Like the other day, we just got back from Texas, where we played a handful of shows, and it was a very successful run. And he played early American, and he did both Larry and Joe's part, played it simultaneously, and didn't even miss a lick. And at the correct speed, maybe even faster. This he's I'm telling you, if you have any fans or viewers out there who are, I know you're watching a slap bass series, but if you're a guitar nerd, you have to check out Kyle Eldridge.
Yeah, Kyle is great. I saw some videos of him. I don't think I ever seen him play live, but I'm sure that's gonna change in the future.
Oh yeah.
And you guys have a one CD out, or like more,
Yeah,
or
so we had an EP that we recorded at Deep Dickerson's. And we just went in there and we did two takes, and that was it. Every single song, and just knocked it out back to back. And it was great. I mean, we got such a good traditional sound. Deke really accommodated us, and he knew exactly what we were going for. So that's our Rhythm Rounders EP. And we've been selling that. We're actually about to try to get it pressed onto vinyl, and we kind of want to go away from CDs and primarily stick with vinyl records, because we're not a big enough band where you can see several $1,000s from CD sales at a show. So we and a lot of people will come to our shows. They're such vintage enthusiasts that they don't necessarily want a CD. They want a vinyl record. So we're gonna release that on vinyl record, and then he has this brand new album out, on Swell Tunes Records, and it's a Spooky Moon, and I'll just put it up to the camera. This is brand new on Swell Tunes Records, and that is actually Kyle's grandmother. She
wow.
just passed away,
Oh,
so it's kind of a tribute to him. And he's got it's two side 45. He's got one side's a honky tonk song, kind of kind of more of a Ray Price sort of shuffle. And then the other is an instrumental. We put an instrumental on every album that we've done, and we will continue to do that every single one. We call them barn burners because they're burning down the barn.
They sure do. And that's the record that you did at Deeks, right?
Yeah. This album is actually recorded, I believe, and this was recorded at Dale Watson's studio, and Dale Watson has the original soundboard and all the stuff from Sun Studios. So when they mixed it, they did Chris Burns mixed it and mastered it and gave us our sound, and he wanted a authentic Sun record sound, so everything has slapback on it. So
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to mention about Kyle?
You know, I would like to mention that, you know, we are, every festival we go to, we try to work in the Rhythm Rounders Ranch Party, and we really just believe in what all the old guys did. And, you know, Hank Penny, you know, Tommy Duncan, Tex Ritter, all these guys, you know, Town Hall Party and Ranch Party. We love that live atmosphere. And so whenever we go to a festival, we try to do the Rhythm Rounders Ranch Party and bring that spirit back. So if you're an upright bass player, fellow upright bass player, you know, we would love to feature you on one of our variety shows. If you're a singer songwriter and want to plug your stuff and come on up, you know, we always encourage people to play music and to promote their stuff. And we all love live music so much that, you know, we want everybody to make their dreams come true and succeed. You know, we all believe in each other, you know.
That's a great way to do it. I think it's time like for you to play a little bit more if you.
Oh yeah, sure, man.
What you gonna do now?
Malaguena. I think I've seen you do this one.
I would just ask you if you can lower a camera a little bit because I really want to see your right hand as well.
Yep. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Please keep your bass. I have a couple questions, bass related questions.
Yeah.
I'm always curious, like, to hear how people, what is the terminology and nomenclature that the different bass players use. So, do you mind demonstrating the slap patterns that you use, and how do you usually name them, especially if you have to show them to someone, or like, are you using the single slap, double slap, triple slap type of thing, or you have your own?
Yeah, so I do, you know, single slaps. I mean, I guess we'll just do a boogie, for example, in the key of A. And so single slap. Single slap. Double slap. I primarily play a lot of our Western swing stuff, doing double slaps and driving 4/4 kind of stuff. But I'll add a triplet. There's different kinds, different speeds. I'll use my fingertips for triplets. I'll use kind of the back part of my thumb, more like a drag triplet. So like for example, when I'm playing rockabilly, it consists of all double slaps, maybe a drag triplet or just a regular triplet. So here's an example of double slap and the triplet. So I really am a big fan of drag triplets. So and then there's quads. I use quads. Quads are very difficult. As you know, I don't have to tell you because you play quads effortlessly. I play a quad kind of like that, where I use my pinky, I use my thumb, and then I'll slap back down and pull back up. So like I'll use that when I'm like doing like a gallop. And that's pretty much the extent of a lot of my bass slapping, stuff like that. A lot of Western swing stuff, a lot of 2-beat Western swing stuff. So like, for example, a standard, right or wrong, stuff like that, I'm a big fan of 2-beat. And so also I'm a big fan of Fred Maddox. What Fred Maddox would do, which I love the Maddox brothers and Rose. And, he would sit there, he would play a 2-beat. Right? And then he would go, instead of going 2/4, he would go 4/4. So he would be like, and it just adds a little bit of flair. So we'll do it with Kyle, but we started adding a lot more of that and a lot more of the psychobilly kind of stuff. So we've got stuff like that, and that's it. I try not to get too jazzy. A lot of Nashville has rubbed off on me. As you know, in Nashville, a lot of guys don't want a bass player that's super flashy. So in Nashville, it was a lot of, and every once in a while you would be able to bust out a few slaps here and there. And but I like hanging in the pocket on a lot of stuff. The only stuff that I truly go crazy at when I'm playing with Kyle, we'll go crazy. And the cowboy hat comes off sometimes and the greasy hair goes everywhere and we have fun. And then the same for Larry, everything it's all really fast 2-beat stuff. Stuff like that fast, flying fingers and so I primarily use, I guess, double slaps and triplets, quads, and just a lot of gallops. So that's pretty much how I'm playing my bass. And I see a lot of other great bass players, like Kevin. Kevin's timing is he plays the most off time stuff, and he's impeccable. You know, he does a lot of variety of different slaps. I was always tried to be influenced by him, and but I can't hold the torch to that guy, man. So uh, I've just pretty much acquired my own style. Like I said, I was never classically trained. I just picked up an upright bass and learned major and minor scales and just made it work. And then I assigned numbers to them, and it made filling in with bands super easy. And I'll sit there and I'll sit there and freaking do it over and over and over again, up the whole neck, back down, reverse, and it's really, once you get your major and minor, for aspiring bass players, once you get your major and minor scales down and you assign numbers to them, you're ready to play with just about anybody, as long as it's not a jazz gig.
Yeah, a few more scales and then you're ready for the jazz gig too.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Thanks for sharing all this, and especially mentioning what your recommendation for aspiring bass players. Is there anything that you would recommend for other bass players to practice on a regular basis? Do you have any etudes, exercises that you regularly do on bass?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do Under the Double Eagle. Do you know that old standard?
I'm not super familiar with it.
Okay, so that's just an old school American standard. It's an instrumental, and many bands play it different ways. I just like the way that it sounds on bass. And Larry and I, we used to do this song all the time. It's actually one of my grandpa's favorite songs, so I always love just playing it whenever I pick up a random bass. But it's like this. Sorry, it's been a bit. Just finding little stuff like that, little warm-up stuff. Finding stuff like that. I love the melodicness of it. I love, it also gives me a chance to use my pinky and my ring finger. Like I'm one of those guys that love doing that. But you know what? My number one advice to anybody who's ever aspiring, I'm gonna go back down here. My number one advice to anybody who's ever aspiring to be an upright bass player, and this goes with any form of music. You know what? I would rather watch you play your gig and suck than to not watch you play a gig. If your heart is in music, you should be playing it, and you should not give a damn what anybody else ever says and thinks about you. As long as it makes you happy, that's all that matters at the end of the day, man. Music is about love and it's about passion. And as long as that's there, who cares what anybody else says? You do what you love doing, and maybe you'll grow a fan base along the way.
That's a great advice. I love it.
Yeah.
And thanks for playing, and I don't have anything to add. I usually ask people like, oh, could you clarify a little bit about the single slap or double slap or something, but you use the same nomenclature system that I use on auto slap bass, and then that for me makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So as
I
far
think
as single
so.
double,
You hear a bunch of different bass players call it different stuff, and I don't get into any of the crazy. Joe Fick is a madman. I watched his video he put on YouTube the other day about him slapping bass, and he was doing Willie Dixon like triplets, and oh my god, man, he's a machine.
I love Joe Fick.
Yeah,
Uh, Great guy, great player, great friend, awesome guy. So shout out to Joe as well.
of course.
Um, Let me talk. Let us talk a little bit about your gear. How many bases do you own, and what kind of strings do you use? What would you mention as far as your gear goes?
So I have my main base is 1943K right now. It has gut strings on it. It has one roto sound on there because the gut string snapped. And I have new gut strings. I have a gig tomorrow, so I don't want to put them on. You know what stretching time is like on that. So I really want a whole week to kind of work them in. And but I have an Engelhart, blonde Engelhart, and I love it. Gut strings, and I use for my pickup. I've always used K&K pickups. Um, I I think I adapted it from playing a lot of psychobilly. You want the piezo pickup to get that slap sound. I actually crank it way down because I find that moving it the slightest bit with the right bass rig, it gives enough percussion. It overpowers quite easily. So K&K pickups. I'm really interested in Dave Rowe and Joe Fick have sold me on the Barbera pickup. I really want to try one of them. During the pandemic, I tried to reach out to Barbera, and I never even got a reply from them. And so gigs were coming up. I had to go back to Old Faithful and use K&K. Um, I've used shadow pickups before. It's kind of the same thing. I guess I like shadow pickups because on the box it's got a lot of the mid sweeps and stuff like that. It's like its own little amp head on your tailpiece. I don't like mounting stuff on tailpieces. I think that I like the bass to look as traditional as possible. It's beautiful. Part of that's one of the things that attracted me to stand up bass was saying, "Wow, that is such a beautiful instrument." I can't believe somebody makes those by hand. And it's so I try to not put as much stuff on my bass, like on the tailpiece preamps. As it goes for bass gear, currently I use a 410 GK Neo cab, and I use a GK Fusion 800, and I have a compressor that I use, a DBX compressor, and it just kind of tones down all the extra noise that you hear. It makes your bottom end not as um, boomy. And so I'm a big fan of that. I recently just got on the compressor kick. It took me a long time to come around to that, and I'm really happy with the bass sound right now. But yeah, as it goes for gut strings, uh, you know, even the cheapest strings are like almost $200. You may as well just save up and get some like Lensner gut strings. It's worth it. That's my number one advice to anybody who is buying anything for upright bass is don't skimp out on the quality of gear that you use. I've used to tour with a Palatino bass, and it was a cheap $700 bass. And I put gut strings on there, and I put a good pickup on there, and I got an amp, and it was one of the best sounding basses I ever had. And it just was a beater road bass, and so you can really end up polishing a turd with the right equipment on it. And I think that's where it's at. And my advice, it took me a long time to figure out gear wise, like head, but I'm a big GK fan. I know other people swear by Ampeg. Other people use Orange, PV. Uh, and I like a lot of the PV, like especially when they made all their stuff in Mississippi. The quality was there. It's when they started shipping and making stuff in China. I think the quality went way downhill. Um, but I'm a big fan and big believer of GK. What do you use currently? You use Blast Colt, right, for all your pickups and stuff like that?
Yes, they made my prototype like a
Mhm.
Georgia pickup the way I asked them to do it, and then I've been using that for a while, for forever.
What do you use amp wise and
Orange,
tab wise? Orange.
orange, yeah.
Okay, and you how long have you been using them?
Uh, I've been endorsed by Orange for maybe 8 years,
Oh wow,
something like that.
nice. Yeah, no, that's great, man. I love it. Your sound is incredible.
Oh, thanks. And I use steel strings, you know.
Yeah, I know, and you're a beast for doing it. I
I'm
could not use steel strings, but you know what? I do love how loud they are.
there's lots of qualities. I do love, gut strings, but it was never my sound. And but I would say this, if I have to play like traditional New Orleans gig, maybe in New Orleans, in French Quarter on Royal Street or Frenchman or wherever,
You're
you
playing
know,
a gig at the Spotted Cat.
and I'm talking about playing on the street.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, okay, for busking.
so my preference would be gut strings, but in any other situation would be steel strings, and I played domestics for, I don't know, forever.
Yeah.
So that
Very, very reputable strings. I know a lot of people who use it. You know who else uh, uses steel strings and plays speed psychobilly is this guy named Dave Kruger. He's the original bassist for Blazing Haley, and
okay.
all the album work that you hear, that's Dave Kruger. And he would sit there and play the fastest slapping upright bass I had heard as a kid, and he would play steel strings, and he would sit there and his fingers would just be bleeding, and and but he would do it, and he would do, I think he did what Steve Whitehouse does. I think he uses the EMG pickups, the magnetic pickups. Yeah. So I used steel strings when I first started,
Mhm.
because like I said, I bought a broken bass and repaired it myself, put a new dowel pin in it, and repaired the head, and and it came with steel strings. So I used those for a little bit. It just was, I mean, when you're playing it, I guess when you play it forever, it's not a big deal. But me with the guts, man, I can't do it. It'll just destroy my hands.
I think it's good for intonation, for like dealing with humidity if you're like traveling, and they just stay in tune.
Oh, very good.
So
When we were just we went down for that Swell Tunes record tour, and it was Kyle Eldridge, Sean Young, Willie Berry, and I play bass for everyone, and I had to constantly keep tuning my bass. I would check it. I always have a pedal right in front of me, so I can always just make sure on the spot, and mute it. But yeah, I was shocked. The first couple gigs, it took a while for my bass to kind of adapt to the humidity that was down there. But when we were down there, we played like the Continental Club. We played the Lone Star Roundup. We did uh, like Joe's Coffee, a bunch of local Austin gigs. It was cool, but it was very hot and humid.
I love playing Austin. I've been to Austin a few months ago,
Oh, nice. Just
December or something.
nice. Did you go to Continental Club?
I did go to Continental. I went to a few spots. I mean, I usually hang out there with Kevin as much as I can. And then I saw Todd and Josh, uh, and whoever was other bass players that I see.
Mhm,
Oh, Ryan. I always see Ryan,
mhm.
but Ryan was not playing when I was in Austin that time. But Ryan and Kevin are always, the first people that I see uh, down there.
Oh yeah.
And I was there maybe for 5 or 6 days, something like that.
We're up in San Luis Obispo right now, but we really love Texas, and we want to move out to Fort Worth area.
Oh, you
It's
do?
just
You
yeah,
plan to move down
it's
there?
what
You plan to move down there?
we're trying to move out there. Yeah, it's
All right.
just very difficult with a little one on the way and and our life we've established here. It's difficult to pick up and move. But yeah, no, we want to move. We're gonna eventually be out in Fort Worth area.
All right. Texas is nice. And
Yeah.
yeah, and California, lots of Californians have been moving to Texas for the last couple of years, right?
Oh yeah, I know. Tell me about it. We got last time we were there, we were getting side eye when we went into HEB, which is the like local grocery store, from a
Oh,
girl named Tammy. She said, "Oh, y'all are from California. Y'all, you're buying up all the houses. Stop."
wow. Yep. That's how it goes. Um, you mentioned, we still talk about your gear. You mentioned a pedal. You mentioned your tuner. Any other pedals that you use?
No, I like I said, I use a DBX compressor, like an older model, and that's it, man. I don't use, it's too much to have a pedal board and stuff. I find that as long as you mount your pickup right and you're able to EQ your head, uh, you don't need all that stuff, really. I think that, which is why I said, don't skimp out on quality. Save up the money, get the right gear. It's going to pay off in the end. If you try to nickel and dime everything, you're going to constantly be replacing gear, and it's going to suck when you're 1,000 miles away from home and something happens and you can't get it. So I
Sure.
think that having good gear and dependable gear is the number one thing.
Do you play with the bow?
No, I do not. No, I've attempted every once in a while. I've seen you play with a bow though.
Yeah, yeah. I mentioned I was in music school for a long time, so and symphony orchestra and all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I can sustain notes and using a bow. I've never really been in a band where they wanted it. One guy did, and I used it in the beginning of a song. Um, but that was it. I'm not too into bowing. And if I wanted to learn bowing, I think honestly, I think I might try to pick up a fiddle, but my hands are too big.
um, yeah. For me, there's something special about bowing. Especially if you know how to do it right. But that's another thing. Talking about gear or talking about anything. What works for one guy doesn't work for the other. And as long as you bring love and passion, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
you can have anything, and then you can, and as long as you make it your own, especially, and then if it
Exactly,
just
exactly.
sounds right, if it sounds right for you, it might not sound right for me, and the opposite. And then some people are maybe able to um, make it sound cool and make it work well with
Yeah,
other
and I mean, I know that I just
sports.
pretty much talked up K&K quite a bit. Um, But I have actually used blast Colt pickups, and
Oh, yeah,
and
cool.
I love them, man. I love them. They're great. That's another really good quality pickup for advice for beginners. But just like you said, what works for somebody, uh, might not necessarily work for the other. So I think it's a lot of trial and error. I just found something that I liked that was dependable and it gave me a unique sound and I loved it, you know. So I try to stand by them, you know. And they're good, you know. If something goes wrong with the product, they'll send me another one, or you know, they've been great. I've used them. I've used K and K's now since I've started playing bass. But you know, I also hear guys get great sounds out of Fishmans, Underwoods, you know, all those pickups too. They're like realists, all those pickups. Like I said, what works for somebody else necessarily won't work for you. So I think it's just really about trying to find what you like and sticking with it, you know. Which brings me back to my other point. Just do what you love doing and you know, don't give a damn what anybody says.
That's the best advice. Um, I would like to talk a little bit about your bass influences.
Mhm.
Who would you like to mention from the old guys that you would consider an influence?
I really, man, Bob Moore. All the stuff that he did with, you know, the A team, it was amazing. All the stuff that he did with Patsy Cline with the old Decca stuff, that was amazing. You know, as it goes right now, I'll give you the same list I gave Kevin Smith. My top three favorite bass players: Bob Moore, Joe Fick, and Kevin Smith.
All great guys and all great, amazing players.
Yeah, and
Um,
they're also unique in their own way too.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, what would you? How would you say if I had to ask you, like, for the most essential slap bass recordings?
Hmm.
What would be your list?
You know what? I love all the old Calavera stuff, actually, with the stuff that Jeff used to do.
Yeah,
Um, he was great, man. Calavera was great, and they used to play with Los Creepers. We'd see him all the time, but he would do amazing stuff. Um, and the stuff you do with Tiger Army is great. You know, all the bass breakdowns, a lot of Willie Dixon stuff. Um, I liked I'm a real big fan of Bob Moore because he was in the pocket and he was the A team. He made the Nashville sound. And that's why I admire him because he pioneered a bunch of stuff, but he just hung in the pocket, was consistent, didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a note, you know, and which is unbelievable because a lot of people miss notes and you know, but he was great. Yeah, I mean, as it goes for essential bass stuff, yeah, I Willie Dixon, Cab Calloway, stuff like that, is great. High Noon, a really incredible bass slapping. I know we've pretty much mentioned Kevin this whole time, but you know, if you have not heard High Noon and you're into upright bass, you need to check it out. Uh, Even the stuff he did with the Asylum Street Spankers, stuff like that. A little bit more New Orleansy stuff, but it's still all great, tasteful bass. Yeah, I would say Willie Dixon. Definitely check out all his stuff. You know, if you have not seen it, watch all of his bassology videos and all the different live stuff. He was amazing, and he really did truly pioneer stuff. Uh, what do you think? What do you think is essential bass listening for somebody who's just starting out?
well, I would say Dinah by played by Steve Brown with Gene Colgate Orchestra from
Hmm.
the 20s. I would say Plucking the Bass with Milt
Hmm.
Hinton from 1939 with Cap Calloway. I would say any Willie Dixon solos that he did with Big Three Trio.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to choose one, I would probably choose Hard Notch Boogie Beat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then Joe Zinkin stuff, um, maybe Four Leaf Clover. Of any of those like solo Joe Zinkin stuff that he did. Um,
Do you like any of the like stuff Bill Black went and did, and he branched off on his own and kind of got the Bill Black combo going?
I mean, I dig it. It's just not slap bass. He played.
Yeah, exactly. I know. He kind of just went, standard uh, session based stuff.
Yeah.
And it played a lot more slab bass. Is it fine to call it slab bass on here?
If you ask me about 50s rockabilly slap, I would have to choose James Kirkland. You know,
Oh
he was
yeah.
always kind of like my favorite.
Oh, the stuff that he did with Ricky Nelson and everything. I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's
Yeah,
just it sounds already produced. It's a quality. It's great.
yeah,
By my opinion, he had like kind of like better technique than most of those cats from the 50s.
yeah, yeah. You got.
And
I,
then other rockabilly players would be Bob Moore and Joe Zinkin, you know, because
mhm,
rockabilly stuff that Bob did with Johnny Burnett,
mhm,
it's high up there. It's kind of the best. And I think that the only the only slap bass solo that Elvis ever had on a record is played by Bob Moore, but that's later on. That's 60s, and that
mhm,
will be U.S. Mail, maybe
mhm,
68 or something around that era. My favorite Bob Moore stuff is Scherzo for slapped bass that he did with on the album Said I to Shostakovich, uh,
mhm,
Dapper Saucy. That stuff is great. I love slap bass in Romani music and Gypsy music. Probably the most essential would be by Vlad, played on Turcheska.
mhm.
Um, I don't know how. I mean, I can go on and on. So,
Oh yeah, I know.
but
Man, a lot of those gypsy guys, they're amazing.
yeah,
I,
that's a,
and I see them too. They kind of like it's almost like a Toloche, like they'll use weed whackers and stuff, and it sounds like they play in psychobilly almost.
yeah. Depends, you know. I mean, that's kind of style. I really dedicated one portion of my life researching that whole era and that style. That whole thing most likely started in the 70s, and it was
Mhm,
kind of forbidden because it was gypsy and Ceausescu was in power in Romania. So, um, and recordings are very, very hard to find
mhm,
till the 90s. So, and then you can get more of the Tarev de Hajduk stuff, and there's quite a few guys that were like Dobrika Florin was excellent with Fulgerica, who I've seen play live, and a few other guys. They were like amazing players. But the most essential recording I would say was Turcheska, but which is interesting because that whole um, pattern, the whole solo is something that they just use in that type of
mhm,
songs, which means basically a Turkish song, even it's not Turkish, but it's
mhm,
that particular style. There's quite a few, and then c- um, Far Brothers, like Far Stomp, like that's like
mhm,
30s. That whole like Western swing, that's quite essential. Then Jake Tulloch with
mhm,
cousin Jake Tulloch with
mhm.
especially for the Carnegie Hall live album. I love that stuff. Um,
Are
what
you a big fan of Fred Maddox?
I like Fred Maddox. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan, like I'm a fan of Zinken and
Mhm.
Pops Foster and those cats, but um, I dig Maddox. I dig Fred
Yeah,
Maddox. I mean,
I
it's
I think he was
served
great.
its purpose.
Larry said he used to strap his bass to the top of the Cadillac
Mhm.
and drive to his gig.
I think that main thing about Fred is that he was really influential,
Yeah,
and that he was slapping hard, so it was very present.
yeah, exactly.
But as far as technique or lines, I wouldn't say that he was. Definitely wouldn't be on my top.
Yeah, no, it is a bunch of two beat, 145
It's
stuff.
cool. It's great.
Yeah,
It sounds awesome.
no, it's definitely it's great. I love Maddox, but yeah, I mean, it's all 145 with a two and maybe a six in there. That's why I kind of like the Western swing stuff because when you break down to like numbers, I mean, pretty much every Western swing song is 3 6 1 2 5 on the turnaround. But and as long as you can start getting figuring out your Nashville numbers and stuff, Western swing out stuff or Western swing stuff, not really that intimidating. I remember when I first started, like I said, I was self taught. I never went to school or anything like that. I remember like listening to Bob Wills and just being like, "Holy shit, what is that?" You know, and being like, "Oh man, I maybe one day I'll be able to play that." And then it's just you figure it out. There's a certain formula for Western swing stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a formula for bebop and free
Exactly.
jazz as well.
Have you had Wally
I
on your?
tried to reach to him right before he moved,
Mhm.
and so it didn't happen. No, I did not have him. I hope I will.
Yeah, I hope
Let me
so
see
too,
now.
and I'd love to see that because he's a great bass player.
Oh, he's excellent. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was playing with Deke. Um, when Deke asked me for the first time to tour with him, and it gotta be 2006 maybe,
Mhm.
like that. I moved to the States in 2004, so I guess around 2006. Um, he played with Deke. He played the bass with him when I met Deke for the first time, and then I played in a traditional rockabilly band called the Haywoods
Mhm.
in NorCal. I was living in San
Yeah, the
Francisco.
Haywoods.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're still around, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because we went up, we have a 1964 Cadillac, and
Hmm.
we drove it up to go see Greg Nito, and
Hmm.
they have the B Stars, and so drove up to go see him play. I think it was at the Makeout Club or something like that, or some bar in over in San Francisco. But the Haywoods they played, and they just played like an opening is small, maybe like 30-minute set, but they were great, man.
It's good. Yeah, good songs. I think that's the best quality of that band. Good songs.
Yeah,
Um,
like I said, I like that you're so well rounded as a bass player. A lot of rockabilly stuff just gets so repetitive.
sure, I
It
agree.
really does. It's a lot of it's 145 stuff, over and over and over again.
And
Um,
some of the best rockabilly stuff is that. So
oh yeah, yeah, that's true. That's definitely true.
that's why we love that music. The simplicity is a big part of it, and I think it's very important. Then in the process of learning more, you don't lose that energy and excitement when you play it, because as soon as you lose that, and then you still play the right notes and you're in a pocket and everything is right, it just does not sound right. It often sounds boring. And then I think it's important to keep that mindset when you heard rockabilly for the first time, when you're a teenager or whatever, and then you what you felt at, and to play it that way. I
Yeah,
think that's kind of the trick.
yeah. Well, I mean, rockabilly has been with me since I've been born, and it will be with me, and it will be in my family long when I'm dead. So,
That sounds about right. I like that.
yeah, it's
Um,
it's something where you're born into, man.
and you definitely were. I have a couple more questions that I would like to ask you. what would be your, you mentioned this in a little bit, but if I have to ask you, like, what would be the main advice that you could give to aspiring bass players that it would like to get a gig, to find a band, to find musicians to play with?
Well, like I said, when I first started playing psychobilly music, there were no psychobilly bands. I went and found punk rock bands and said, I'm going to be your new bass player and I'm going to play upright bass. And they didn't even know what psychobilly was. And we just started playing psychobilly music. And the biggest thing, I, the number one thing that I can give advice for somebody, and you can meet the biggest star, uh, and they're just normal people, you know? You don't have to worship the ground that they walk on. You can just level with them and just be a cool person and hang out with them, you know? Half the time, a lot of people are just looking for friends too, you know? So I think that that's how, honestly, I was able to get a lot of gigs because I grew up around a lot of these people in the rockabilly and country scenes. And um, we were friends, you know, friends first. Um, and then one thing led to another, and bam, you're playing music with them. That's a good way to go about doing it. If you have a band in mind that you want to, just become friends with them. And, but I think if you're trying to form a band, it's changed so much because I don't really try to form bands now. Um, Back in the day, I mean, you could post in Craigslist and try to find bands, and but my number one advice to you, if you're trying to form a band, find a drummer that knows and can keep time, like a clock, and hang on to that drummer forever and bring them and use them in every band you play in. Because that's what I did with Chris Story. He was one of the best drummers I ever worked with, and he could he could play speed psychobilly, he could play rockabilly, he could bust out brushes, play western swing, he could play jazz. He's the best, hands down, the best drummer I've ever worked with, and I use him and I recommend him at every single festival. Um, if you're want to go and do festival work, uh, I would get hired on and fly out with one band, and then I would just make the rounds, hit up all your friends who are performing, and say, "Hey, I'm going to be there. If you need a sub gig, let me know." But my number one advice to somebody who's doing a sub gig: make sure you learn the material, and if you're having trouble with it, there's never any shame in making a cheat sheet. You know, uh, I do it all the time. When I was the house bass player for the Nashville Boogie for quite a while, and I played with a handful of European bands every year and local Nashville bands. There would be sometimes during the festival I would be playing with 20 bands throughout 3 days. I mean, you're going from one end of the festival to the other, back to the other, and you can't memorize all those songs. So I would just take a notebook and I'd make cheat sheets, use Nashville number system, and just write it down. And it comes out good. I think there's a certain you need to practice at picking up sub gigs, and especially picking them up on that level and playing a bunch of them. You need to be able to sight read if it's jazz gig. You need to be able to read your charts, and I that would be my number one advice. And also, if you're trying to form a band, uh, find somebody who loves playing and writing the music that you're passionate about. Because when you pour passion into something, it just shows. It radiates your energy, and I think that that's why I love playing with Kyle so much, because you know what, it brings me back to playing with my family, and we love the same stuff. You know, we'll sit there and we'll geek out about Merle Travis all day long.
That's a good person to geek out about.
Oh yeah.
Before that, since you play and played so many shows and so many with so many different artists, do you have a special way to warm up before the show, or do you just go to the stage and get it?
I mean, I'll sit in the back and I'll work on gallops, because gallops are, you know, your bread and butter. I'll sit there and I'll warm up my hand. I'll do quads in the back before I go on,
Mhm.
over and over and over again. I'll do it about 20 times just to warm up the wrist. Um, and of course, quads are good because you get your whole rotation in your wrists. You know, I don't know how your wrists are doing nowadays, but mine hurt at night.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
it took me a little bit. Like, actually, it was pretty fast. Like, for these Tiger Army shows, since we haven't played for a while, and the stuff that I played in the meantime, it was mostly jazz, so not like too much fast lap, but it came back. It's there. I'm excited for these two Danzig shows and this upcoming tour with Foggy and Molly.
Are
Be
you,
fun.
man? My better half, Arlene, sitting over here being like, "Let's go to Danzig."
Come on.
Yeah, Dan, we would love to come down, man. But yeah, and that's cool. Are you gonna do any country stuff with Nick 13?
I mean, we always have a one country song in the set with Tiger Army,
Mm-hmm.
but I never played with Nick as him as a solo artist.
He used Dave Rowe on his album, right?
They played on one Tiger Army album before I joined.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm not sure. I know that Johnny Baller played country stuff with him live. I'm not sure who did a record with him though. Um,
Because he recorded it in Nashville, right?
Tiger Army stuff or the
The solo stuff.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Can ask him.
No, no, you don't need to, man. You don't need to.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but I know that he did play in Nashville. We were actually just talking about it like a couple of days ago. But yeah. I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to ask you. I have one more question, and I would like to ask you to play a little bit more, if you don't mind. But before that, is there anything that you would like to mention that you think that I might have skipped or forgot that you think it's important?
No, no. I think we pretty much covered all the bases, man.
All right. So do you mind to slap a little bit more?
Sure, sure,
That's
sure.
okay.
All right. Here, can my camera assistant help me?
Oh, is she there like through the whole show?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Oh, thanks so much for doing that.
All right. Thank you.
And a lighting assistant.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Let's see. That's one of
All
the
right.
things, one of the things that I always like to do is I like to play your note in many different positions.
Mhm.
So, I'll play down here. I'll play. I like to do that. I'm a big fan of hitting that high D on your on the G string. And just so everybody knows, I do have an A string. It's just black at this time.
Just invisible.
Yeah, very. That's a good warm up that I like doing too. Before I go on, is I'll just sit there and just go. Just really just changing it up, man. But a bunch
I
for
like that lick, and actually, I used to have a lesson part of the show, so this might be a good time if you don't mind, like kind of just slowing down and explain to our viewers that particular riff pattern that you did.
Mhm.
Um, just just show it as a Dakota's slap bass lesson.
All right. Yeah, I'll try to go ahead. I'll play it a little bit slower. It's kind of one of those riffs you kind of have to play a little bit fast. But let's see. So the riff itself is. So I actually had seen Joe Fick do that. So I just try to play it as fast as possible. I like playing a lot of country stuff as well. And that's a Merle Travis song. It's
That's
Divorce
awesome. I
POD.
love it.
Yeah, that's a like I said, it's I really like a lot of the traditional country music and that style of playing. I'm slowly starting to stray from psychobilly. My wrist had been killing me, man. I couldn't be doing what you're doing every night, man. You every time I see a video of you, I'm like, shit. It's incredible. The fact that you play steel strings too. Wow, man.
Well, that yeah, I mean that's the only thing I do.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but thanks, I appreciate it. But it's yeah, I would like to know, what other people do like for wrist stretching and how to save their wrists. I think that would be valuable thing. Maybe one of these days I should interview a chiropractor or something.
Yeah, you know what? You can interview our drummer, man. He's a massage therapist and he knows
Oh,
all the exercises. I do one of those.
mhm.
Uh, Beyond that, I have a beautiful, beautiful wife that rubs my wrist for me before the shows and after it.
All right.
Yep,
It's a good way to warm up.
exactly.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do what you do after all these years on the road, after all these stages and artists that you played with?
Yeah. What do you like? How so? What do you mean? The way I'm currently living life?
What inspired you to still play music? What inspired you to still play bass, to slap the bass? You pretty much done, I assume, most of the things that you wanted to do, but you still
Yeah.
find passion to do it
The
and
only
to.
thing that's left really on my bucket list. I mean, I we did the Lincoln Center was huge. I played at the Grand Old Opry. Um, that was really big. My mom came out for that, and it was an amazing experience. And
This is Grand Ole Opry backstage, right?
yep, that's
All
right
right.
backstage at the Grand Old Opry. So not allowed to take pictures, so don't tell anybody. So, but yeah, I did a lot of bucket list stuff. I think the only thing that's really truly on the list nowadays is Kane's Ballroom. That's supposedly Bob Wills is still there. Supposedly that's he haunts the place.
Oh wow! All right.
So, and Kane's Ballroom in Oklahoma. I want to Kyle and I. We're gonna come for you.
Thanks so much for being part of the slap stream. Thanks so much for sharing all these stories, for the slap bass lesson, for
Of
all
course,
that beautiful playing.
of course.
Uh, Wish you all the best, and I hope we're gonna see each other in real life sometime soon.
Yep. Sometime soon, man. Next time you're in San Luis Obispo, we're gonna be getting together.
Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good.
Best of luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that was a 73rd episode of the Slap Stream with Djordje live from Slapsville. That was great. Dakota Collins from the Collins Kids, from Blazing Haley, from Kyle Eldridge. You heard his great story, and this is kind of the best part of the week, for me. I love playing shows, but I love talking to all these great bass players and talking slap bass for a couple hours, and now it's over 2 hours. Um, Please let me know who you would like me to interview next. Write this in the comments under the video. Do not write it in the live chat because I don't check that often. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to slap that like. That helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you would like to really support the slap stream and my work, check out these Venmo and PayPal links in the description of the video, as well as Patreon. Patreon is pretty much the best way to support the slap stream. Buy a Art of Slap Bass t-shirt. All these links are in the description of this video. And don't forget, never fret, slide it in smooth and keep it in the groove. I'm Djordje, and I'll do my best to see you next Saturday as well.